afternoon and happy Saturn in Pisces. So, let's just see, where is this episode beginning? This is an episode completely dedicated to Saturn. Thank you. Not showing my chart, please, right now. This is an episode completely dedicated to Saturn in Pisces. And I know I already did one. But that was more predictions, what will be, what this, what that. Here is more looking at it from the point of view where Saturn is now already in Pisces. So, this is a Mars day, moon hour, and we have Saturn's hour coming up in 52 minutes. The ascendant is in Virgo with Mercury in the 8th degree of Pisces, loosely applying to conjunct the Sun in Pisces. The Moon, we are already decreasing from the full moon, which was in Virgo. So the peak point of the moon is separating from opposition to Sun in Pisces and applying to oppose Neptune in Pisces. The moon is also applying to square naturally Mars in Gemini. Jupiter is with Chiron, applying just 1 degree away from tight conjunction with Chiron in Aries. And Pluto is still in the 29th degree. Saturn is literally 0 degrees Pisces and 0 0 minutes just ingressed into Pisces in previous hours or so. Um, so it's actually beginning its journey. We have Pisces, and this already calls for me. When I look at this, this is already calling for asteroids. Yeah, because the descendant is just crossed from Loud. Um, that is interesting. And now, there are a lot of things that I already said, so I'm not going to repeat myself. What I do want is just a couple of general notes as to this transit and a bit of going through or beginning to go through the passage of Saturn in Pisces, which I believe I still didn't do. So, Saturn. Um, just adding up to the videos that I already did, Saturn in Pisces is Jupiter ruled Saturn. It's a chance to have a good balance between contraction and expansion, the in breath, okay, expanding the lungs, and the contraction, the out breath, which of course affects so many things, right? From our nervous system, from the way we give and receive, from our wealth and health, and so on and so forth, our worldview, the health of our bone structure, Saturn, nails, hair, teeth, Saturn, and of course, lungs, heart, eyes, and so on and so forth. Pisces rules the feet, so definitely a wonderful time to begin working on aligning the structure of the bones of your feet and tending to the nails of your feet. You do this together, and of course, the skin of your feet. This is a great time to schedule a good pedicure, preferably with natural things. Um, to learn about the meaning of your feet and to begin to practice, to literally practice, to dedicate time, whether it's massaging your feet, pedicuring your feet, salt bathing your feet, absolutely salt, crystals, using crystals on your feet. All of these things are wonderful. Definitely a great time to get yourself a little pedicure, but this is more with the emphasis on medical pedicure, and this is not a one-time thing. Saturn is going to spend in Pisces until February 2026, so For the passage of Saturn in Pisces, it's a great time to do to restructure what needs to be restructured in your Pisces house. And a good way to get in touch with that in a tangible way is to tend to your feet. Now, I just noticed how many people wear shoes that do not fit them. Shoes that cause bunions, that alter the bone structure, that are considered fashionable, or sometimes even cultural, or even necessary for the environment. If you go around in the desert, if you go, in southern parts of America, for example, then you have to wear these boots that protect you from being bitten by a snake or stung by a Scorpio. But they often have these um, narrow, just narrow shape at where the toes are. And if they only made these shoes wide enough for the toes to get in, so many uh, things would be saved from things to do with physical pain, but also our approach to life. And I previously mentioned, right now we're at the speck of the full moon. The full moon is making an aspect here to Sedna, which is in 28 degrees Taurus. So these this aspect to sadhana tells me that it's a good time to treat to the meridians. There are meridians around, not only in terms of reflexology, but specifically around the bones in your feet, around the nails in your feet. That just by doing yourself, scheduling yourself a pedicure or doing it yourself, attending to these, you can do actually work out to align the structure of your toes, and that's just a great time to do so. That affects, if this is base chakra, okay, the feet, it affects crown chakra, it affects your worldview, it affects later your approach, and of course it affects the whole body and the whole chakra system. Something interesting about Pisces. It rules the feet, is also ruled by Jupiter traditionally, also Neptune modernly. What happens when you fix your feet? You begin to travel, and then you change your mind. You fix your feet, you change your mind, you travel, you change your mind, you fix your feet, and so on and so forth. Saturn rules rocky environments. Saturn rules salt. Okay, I just came back from the Dead Sea yesterday. And of course, minerals, so salt, minerals, crystals, mountains, and their relation to agriculture, water, the quality of the water, which is going to be another topic. The water in the ocean, Saturn is cold and dry, and we need the temperature range between, here we get in scientific, the temperature range between the currents of the ocean, okay, the depths of the ocean, and the sudden changes of the earth underneath the ocean, because there are mountains underneath the ocean, right? It's not even as above, so below. It's just a fractal of as above, so below. And so there are mountains within the ocean. Some of them are artificially made. I was yesterday at the Dead Sea. And just the day before that, a 77, okay, 77 Saturn, years old woman died drowning in the Dead Sea. And that's very weird. It used to happen more up north in the Kinneret, but not in the Dead Sea so much. And why? Now in the Dead Sea, they dig in all the minerals. So they dig all the minerals and they dig all the salt. And what happens is you just enter the Dead Sea, you walk just, a couple of steps. Now, you suddenly cannot stand, even if you are very tall. And then if you swim a bit more, suddenly you can stand. But not only can stand, almost you can laugh at yourself and say, "Oh, I am Jesus," because you can stand literally on the water because the salt is so close to the surface of the water. And then you walk another couple of steps and you cannot stand. So you understand that some of these uh, valleys and hills are manufactured artificially, and that changes the surface of the what's underneath the sea artificially. Now, of course, the Dead Sea is not the only place where that takes place. We've had Netherlands altering the ocean level for survival reasons because it's a flat land in Netherlands. And we had Dubai building islands, artificial islands, and so on and so forth. But then, for sure, definitely, if you have nuclear activity underneath the oceans and experiments, that changes not just the chemical stuff or like have an explosion or whatnot, it genuinely changes um, the the contrast between temperatures, velocities, because temperature is velocity, and if you have various velocities working together, it's like we create a lot of Bermuda triangles and Pacific oceans. In the Pacific Ocean is even more dangerous than in the Bermuda Triangle because it's a juncture and there are various currents with various temperatures in various directions, and so it's very easy to draw on there. And now we get that happening at our neighborhood lake, right? So every body of water has its own story to tell regarding what's going on, and that pertains to a larger issue of mining. If you talk about mining in the mountains, looking for metals, gold, Saturn in Aries. And here I say, maybe I don't know how many times, but I just love this tip. It's by Victor from Astro Victor, who talked about doing Saturn not just in the house where it's entering, but in the house consecutive to the house that it's entering. For example, today Saturn entered Pisces. Don't just take a look at your feet, take a look at your face too. And you know what? This happened to me by accident. I was just buying this rose quartz crystal that that you massage your face with. And I finally bought it. I mean, it didn't make sense that I didn't have one. And not only did I buy it, it was actually because I was willing to spend. Ever since my second house, I was willing to spend on that, even though I didn't have a lot of money. I was willing to invest in that because I felt I need to do that. And it was sold. I got to the cashier, and it was sold in half the price. Okay, think about second house, what you spend money on, your skills, and having Aries there. So Saturn in Aries will definitely be the skin of your face. Also using a crystal like rose quartz to give love to your face, and on the way improve blood flow because it's Mars ruled, so blood. But Mars also rules metals. It also rules iron, and so it's of course every planet has its own metal, but Mars, we talk about iron, we talk about metals, and a lot of metals are actually created by magma. So think about mining gold, mining silver, the things that we invest in. Okay, think about our investments and so on and so forth. How we keep our money when we earn it, and we want to keep the money. We buy, a coin that is stable. What is the most stable coin in the world? It's the Swiss franc. Why is it so stable? Well, it's invested in gold and it's invested in silver. Okay, but this stability comes at the price, and it comes at the price of gradually mining ourselves out of our minerals and our resources. If we go one sign, back, we're back in Saturn in Pisces, which is today. Then we look at the bodies of the ocean because we're mining not just the mountains, okay, Saturn, Capricorn. we're also mining the oceans and the underneath surface of the oceans for minerals, for metals, for not only for sea creatures, which is sedna, but also for things we use in our daily lives. And things we don't only use just in the sense that, well, I can build this house with cork rather than wood, but also our entire economy is based on your 401k or your solid investment or the money that you keep, sometimes not necessarily hush money, but even the money that you want to invest solidly, so invest in metals, and all of that is actually forming the basis of what our stability structure, the financial structure and stability, the thought, what will happen with us when we are at old age? Oh, we kept our money stored in silver, we kept our money stored in gold, we kept our money stored in Swiss francs. It should mm, maintain its value. It's that thing we rely on for the generations. Um, and so when we mine our earth, it's not just that we're destroying our planet, it's not just that the very basic thing that we're going to see with Pisces is like, where can we find sweet water? Which is very basic, but also step forward. Okay, if we take that, if we tend to that, if we tend to reframing the structure, restructuring what we do. Hey, we prepare ourselves for Pluto in Pisces in 20 something years, right? In 44, in 2044, 2045. Pluto will be in Pisces, and then we will have no choice. We will really need to alter. We have radiation in the water, like real stuff. Um, but then, if we are correcting that, if we are addressing that, if we find creative solution, then our reward will be that we already set in the stone for our economy to be built on new structures, new foundations, new waters. Okay, economy of sweet waters. Um, and you think about wealth as fluid, liquidity, cash flow, so and so on and so forth. So um, and, and just Saturn in Pisces gives us a reality check about what's going on underneath the ocean, above the surface of the water. We can quantify things more. Talked about, oh, Saturn asks how many water is in the ocean. Yes, but also when you have varied temperatures that suddenly change and change the current of the water, okay, then what happens when we change the current of something? The temperature changes. Okay, so it's heat, gravity. So temperature, gravity, um, expansion, contraction, so density. Okay, how much ice, how much liquid, and those things are not simple equations because fluid dynamics is more like air dynamics. It's between matter and air, right? Between gas and solid. Then there's an intricacy to that. The It's not easy to predict what the result will be. Um, so here we are making tremendous changes to the closest thing to the not to the closest thing, directly to the core of the earth, because if metals are created by magma, okay, gold is by magma, and magma has to do with volcanic eruption, has to do with earthquake, has to do with tsunamis. Okay, and we understand It's not about we are ruining the planet of the. Come on, all species, all living things, animals, plants, bacteria, whatever, um, all things interact in nature. So do we. It's not like we're this anomaly that got out of synchronicity. No, we are part of nature just as much as anything. That being said, there is an intricacy to our relation with nature, and it's being revealed to us with the presence of the time, okay, with the zeitgeist, the spirit of the water, the spirit of the waves, and the spirit of the times. Okay, that's Saturn in Pisces. Um, so yeah, definitely great art, all these interesting structure of the liquid, liquidifying the structure of our lives, as well as flexibility. Here's a great chance to heal because we can have flexibility. Um, so those are things that further exemplify, that go deeper, into the grain of things. Um, Now, you think also about our body. We talk about the pH levels, alkaline, we talk about minerals and vitamins in our bodies. We also talk about the waves and frequencies of our brain, our nervous system, electric currents within the body. Okay, all of these things, of course, they connect with crystals, have electric currents. So everything has an electric current. Okay, so the waves of the sea and waves of the air, i.e., winds, um, and how all these things kind of gather together. Even the cell phones, like, okay, I have to broadcast this in a cell phone. I know that's not the best choice. Like, probably we need to find better choices for our technologies, and learn how to integrate these waves and frequencies in ways that are more adaptable, because there's something that we don't want to lose this connection, the ability to do podcasts like this, but also we want to maintain a level of well-being, and pick the waves that we are surrounded by, and the waves that we co-create and create and generate within. We want to keep those contributing to our well-being and in alignment with our surroundings, and so on and so forth. um, so that's just the beginning of Saturn in Pisces. It's not making any aspects today. You're gonna have to see what it does in your natural chart. Um, I will go further into the aspects right now. I'll just take a little bit of a break to get myself some water. And this is another Saturn thing, is knowing when to take a break. So I'll get myself more water and I'll be coming back. Okay, so interestingly enough, now resuming this, um, let's go into the transits of Saturn in Pisces. And for that, I will just use the astro tools. I'll begin the calendar, the annual calendar. Just go for the transits and look at Saturn. Um, and let's say any aspect. Okay. So yeah, that's January. Now we're looking at Saturn in Pisces, which is today. Not making any aspects. It's going to sextile Venus on March 18. That's the first aspect Saturn makes in Pisces. And the moon is going to be in Saturn sign in Aquarius, separating from conjunction with Pluto, which is still going to be in 29 degrees Capricorn. Jupiter and Chiron are going to conjunct. Venus will already be in Taurus. Just looking for the context of it. And Saturn would only be in 1 degree Pisces, sextiling Venus in 1 degree Taurus. So that doesn't seem like too significant. It's just a nice time for longevity of relations, skin treatment, perhaps designing something. It's a transient aspect. And then we have the trine to Mars at March 30, with the moon in Cancer. So the moon is not aspecting this. The moon is aspecting Neptune, the ruler, the modern ruler. Saturn already in 2nd degree Pisces. Nice aspect to Mars, but Mars is in Cancer. So again, I don't expect too much with this angle. April 5, we're already very close to the eclipse. Then there is a sextile to Mercury. And the trine with Mars. Mars is separating from trine with the Saturn. You know, Mars, Saturn, Mars in Cancer and Saturn in Pisces, that can be taken in action to create new emotional structures in your life. Okay? That can be by routine, that can be by tending to your anxiety, by doing something, being active. It can even be cooking. Some people deal with emotional eating by cooking, like, because when you cook you actually are being creative, and so when you are being creative you are in motion and you are creating satisfaction by the merit of creating, and then you don't necessarily have to feel that deep hunger. So one way to deal with, let's say, anxiety, instead of just eating cookies, try to cook them, to make them. And you can do, like, I don't know, chocolate with chili peppers, which is very Martian, right? Martian herb. So that is one thing you could do with this transit. And here we have the sextile to Mercury. Mercury in Taurus. Well, yeah, Mercury in Taurus is more about doing something with your hands, maybe sculpture. But on the other hand, who had Mercury in Taurus? Richard Feynman. And he was known for being able to explain very intricate, very complex things to people who did not have any background in physics, and therefore he was considered one of the people who made, physics sexy and popular, by the merit of him being able to make it accessible for people. So Taurus is a fixed sign. It's not, if you have something in Taurus and you have a goal, a desire, you probably are going to get it. You probably are going to go for it, or you probably are going to, if there is a change of the goal, there can be crisis involved. It's going to make you change your goal, but then eventually you're going to get it. So this is great for doing something with your hands that is creative and contributes to altering the structures in your life. April 14, Saturn squares Venus, and that's the annual, that's the first square of Venus to Saturn. Venus is going to be in Gemini here. The moon is not triggering this aspect at this point, but it will trigger it the day after, or in 2 days. So, conjuncting Saturn, this is the time where um, Venus begins to withdraw from Saturn's structure. Okay, the structure, you created a new structure with the conjunction of Venus Saturn. Now, and you gotta think back to when Saturn conjuncted Venus, that was still in Aquarius. And Venus square Saturn, you want to um, hold the tension of your need to connect, to enjoy, to create, and Saturn's need to structure, to discipline, and to rest. Okay. Now, Saturn is not only hard work. In the West, maybe it's because the people, that's what people do with Saturn, and then all of the ailments in the West were stress related. Um, but Saturn is not necessarily hard work. It's also when to let things go, to allow things to die, to rest. It's the sabbatical, okay? The seventh day, the day off. It's the sabbatical. But anyway, Saturn is ruling also a fixed sign, both Capricorn, but also Aquarius, which is a fixed sign, and it can be dogmatic. Um, so if it works hard, it's dogmatic. If it rests, for example, in people who keep Shabbat, in Jews who keep Shabbat, then the strict rules, if you follow the strict rules, you cannot, let's say you they light the light in the bathroom the day before, because they cannot turn on and off the light. It's considered work. And work, arbeiten macht nicht frei. Okay, the work is not liberating. You have to honor the day of the sabbatical, and you cannot even light a match. And so they would have to ask for a non-Jew person if somebody just went to the bathroom, got out, and accidentally closed the light on Saturday, because this is what you do if you are, on any other day. Then you would have to ask for a non-Jew to turn the light on, because a Jew cannot do that. They have to keep Shabbat. It is dogma. It is dogma. It doesn't matter what you think about. If you think that this is correct, that this is only to ensure that people will not begin to the slippery slope of trying to work when they're not supposed to. And so the ways that a hard aspect between Venus and Saturn can play out, it can be both that Venus wants to enjoy herself and Mars wants to work. It can also, and Saturn wants to work. But also, it can be that Venus wants to make love and Saturn is tired. Okay? That can also be. Or Venus wants to, Venus wants to create something with Gemini, or she wants to talk, have a conversation, and Saturn has a dogma that you don't talk when you eat or whatnot, like really that kind of stuff. That can also be criticism. Again, ancient one, to pay attention to that. Okay, it's not, the hard aspects are usually not a good time to start a long-term relationship, because Saturn is good, is longevity of relationship, but when Venus and Saturn meet in an unfair, in a hard aspect, in the time where you begin or establish or commit or begin to date or whatnot, it can mean that this tension is something that's going to be present in your life and moves very slowly. So you can expect that ongoing issue that you will have to trigger. So you would prefer a trine, you would prefer a sextile. Um, Next aspect. Well, there's this sextile to the nodes. I want to skip that and go directly to the sextile to the sun and see what's happening there. Because Saturn is still in 4 degrees spicy, so it's just the minutes and the planets moving around it is just staying put. And like I assume, the sun conjuncts the nodes. Um, this is the sun. It's not the sun of the eclipse of the April 30, but we're only 5 days. This is very interesting. You want to tell me the April 30 eclipse is... Oh. Yes. No, the April 30 eclipse is still going to be with the sun in Taurus. Ah, but the nodes... No. Bless you. Yeah. It's not... The April 30 eclipse is not yet the... So I mixed them because I keep thinking April 30 is the eclipse already on the axis of Libra and Aries, but no. Okay. This one I do think you want to pay attention to. It's a good aspect between the Sun and Saturn. You may be, if you are shining in the light on something that's going on in the Taurus Scorpio axis, you're in with the Rahu, so something in favor, it can be even regulation in favor of creative rights, women rights. That is being established here, especially with the moon. It's a separating aspect, but still a very interesting one. Jupiter 25 degrees, Aries, Chiron still in Aries. Venus and Chiron sextile, just exactly, but I don't see. Yeah, it's not shown here, but Venus is exactly sextile in Chiron. You know what? It's a very interesting aspect. And Pluto already ingressed into Aquarius, but Pluto is hard aspecting the Sun. So, not so good for starting relationships. It can be a day that perhaps it's okay. It's a separating aspects. Perhaps it is okay to challenge authority, but there is tension here. And Saturn is ruling Pluto. So mixed energy, some very good things, but also there is a challenge. Okay, power challenge. This day, 25th of April, in the context already of the eclipse, but this day can be fated in many ways, not just because of the nodes, by the way. Just the merit of Sun contacting Pluto, hard aspecting. The entire, like, the couple of days where the Sun is making this aspect, and the four structure. Okay, the nodes at the 4th degree of Taurus and Scorpio, Sun, 4th center of the galaxy, right? Sun. Saturn, 4th. So 4 fours in pivotal places in the cosmos. And this is also, it's almost 5, but the day before it's already, it's a 4. Here there is a pivotal structural change. It can be either a process that begins now, and the moon is growing. The moon is growing in Cancer, applying to conjunct Mars. I don't. This entire day would need a reference of its own, because some action is being taken that is initiating very, very long-term structural changes. There's an attempt to create a structure already, a new structure, especially earlier that day when that moon really is on the 4th degree of Cancer. So Cancer, Taurus, Pisces, Aquarius. Cancer, Taurus, Pisces, Aquarius, we have the 4 elements. No, we don't have the 4 elements. We have the water, we have the earth, we have the air. But the fire element, we have Chiron and Jupiter. And Jupiter, no. Chiron and Jupiter. Um, Jupiter is not making any aspects, but Jupiter, I believe, is already with Aries. Oh my God. Look at that one with the asteroids. Jupiter is right on it. Let's look at the degrees. Yes, it's just separating from a tight conjunction with Aries, square and Pluto. Save the day. Okay, it can be 25th April, around between maybe to the 20th to the 30th of April. This is something to pay attention to, not just by the merit of Saturn, created in our lives, or there's an attempt to create new structure in our life, but there's great resistance. This structure is in alignment with Rao, so it's happening, okay? Rao, it's happening. New regulations, new this, new that, it's happening. But there's this, there, Humea again. I need to study Humea. I'm not going to do it in this episode. You mind the 29th degree of Libra, oppositing this Aries Humea. I feel like a football broadcaster. It's nice, it's exciting. I never thought of this in this way until now, because I hardly watch sports, but now I feel like I'm a sports forecaster. Why? Oh gosh. It can be something in the sport, you know. It can be something also in the sports games. Sports. I don't know. Are there any games coming up or something like that? Saturn in 29 degrees of Taurus, trine in Eris in Aquarius, Hygeia in Aquarius. Is it Sedna there? Because I'm not sure. No, it's not Sedna, it's Venus. Sedna is in Taurus. She's not making these aspects, of course not. Well, I'll okay, so just remember Jupiter is with Aries, oppositing Humia here. It's well, you know, I previously said a couple of things regarding gender issues. Already with the notes, you know, what did we have? We have Uranus. Right now it's already 18 degrees on this date, but we constantly had this Uranus and eclipses with Uranus and the node. And you know what is Uranus? It's a new concept of Venus. Venus ruled Taurus. So a new concept of things that are Taurian and ruled by Venus, but also a new concept of Venus. So what is a woman? Right? And I said as the nodes are going to move into Aries with Aries in it, and Venus is going to approach, actually, Mars is going to approach Libra, and we have eclipses there. It's two things can happen. One is transgender leaders. My prediction is actually Iran. That is a lot to do with this Aries archetypes. Um, and it looks funny now. And I remember the first time I said that, like a transgender leader, the first time transgender leader, I was like, that's natural for the world, or maybe United States, maybe Israel, I don't know. And then I was talking about Iran and Chiron, I don't remember even when. And it came to me, and I was like, no, this cannot be, this is a joke. And today I was thinking that again, we see, the revolution of women, and is also led by LGBTQ. So this is like, the Messiah in many ways arrived and decided, no, we're not having it. Of course, um, it's a conflict, huh? But I would not be surprised if Iran will end up having a transgender woman leader or something like that. Um, so I don't know. I can't help but look at this, and I said more than thrice, these times, the couple of years that are coming now with the eclipses on Aries, in Aries, are the least of the, not the least, are the worst of the worst to challenge transgender identity. Okay, that in the most, like, this is the map. Okay, it's the worst of the worst time. It doesn't mean that there would not be people who will try to do that, because unfortunately those things are also coming up. But why am I saying it's the worst of the worst? Because where Rahu is heading, this is the new. Like I said, Uranus Taurus is also currency and banks. It doesn't matter how much we want to repel that, eventually there is going to be a lot of technological advancement involved with our currency. We may like it, we may not like it. Some of it is more comfortable, some of it is downright horrifying. Um, and that's just that. At the same time, we're not going to look at women the way we did. And if we look at the kettle where Scorpio is, so the people that say, "Oh, it is not natural," looking at the biology, looking at what's between your legs, is Scorpio, looking at how you feel in your body, okay, is Taurus. Taurus is not just Taurus is craving the sensual experience of the body. Okay? Scorpio, more the psychological, more the this, more the that. But funnily enough, the Scorpio tends to be a lot about what's between your legs. And the Taurus axis is more about how do you like it. Mm? So whether it's breaking gender categories altogether, definitely what was, yeah, the notion of women that was is not going to be, and definitely Uranus is also technology related to the ability of someone to have a vagina. So maybe advancement in this case, some of them blessed, some of them making difficulties, because if a person uh, makes a move, sometimes it's reversible, but if you change, the physiology, but maybe the physiology you could change as well to be reversible, maybe not. Okay, and then there are all kinds of psychological implications. Some people make surgery and they're very happy. Some people make surgery and they say, ah, I wish I didn't do that. But before that, they do suffer tremendously, feeling like, oh, this is not the body that I was supposed to be born. All kinds of things that require both technological advancement, but also a change of point of view, of worldview, um, and revolutionary perspective. I don't have all the answers. Absolutely, if you think of theories like sex, not gender, if you think of theories that are more traditional gender roles, I'm not saying that there are not going to be people who are trying to rebel, because there's always thesis and anti-thesis, but because Uranus is where Rahu is, and then we go to the sense of self with Aries there, which is another, like it's another Uranus. Okay, what is the glyph of Aries? Okay, the glyph of Aries is Venus with let's see, can we see her for a minute? No, it's written Aries, the glyph of Aries. I want to show you because sometimes a picture words 1,000 words. So let's do Aries glyph. And there are a couple of them, but this is an interesting, yeah, images. This is the glyph of Aries. There is no two way here about what this thing is about. Okay? What does it look like? Okay, it looks like either it is a man with a vagina, because this, if you just look at this, if you just look at this, if you add one more line here, then this is how women were actually depicted in ancient uh, books, because they were considered possessions. So how many sheep you have, how many women you have in your household, and the women would be depicted by triangles. Not necessarily it's not there from degradation, because that's how people looked at that. How do you like, what is the symbol of a woman? No, it's a triangle underneath. There's how many triangles like this do you have? This is your property, okay? And you have to report that for the favor of taxes, because you need to feed these women, you need to care for these women, like you feed your cattle. That's how they saw women. Some, in some times in history. Which is ridiculous to our times, but it is also ridiculous to judge them in the standards of our times. Or alternatively, this is Venus, or with a ding, yeah, with something down there, huh? So it's like either a man with a triangle down there, or a woman with a penis down there. Of course, it doesn't have to be, and that you can look at it metaphorically and symbolically. And everything that they say here is so binary, is so traditional, is so, even the way that I conceptualize this is so traditional and binary, and so not even close to the revolution that Aries does bring, because we will need to hear it completely in different ways. Um, but even to the most, biased, we cannot ignore what this thing brings, right? We cannot ignore that. And if you have, and I have a glyph like this with wow, even think of cavemen. You see this, you told, oh, our history is heading the direction, and this is depicted with the points where our history is heading. Now you see this thing is going to bring into being. What does this look like? It looks like a woman with a penis or a man with a vagina. Okay, so we're going to have, if I say without judgment, just observation, we're going to have, we seem to have going to direction where we have women with penises and men with vaginas, or maybe it depends how you look at it, we don't know, but it seems like that is where we head, and we're going to have more the archetype of these women with penis or men with vagina, that we're just going to have to apply to. And the fact that I spilled the water on my bed and I will have to sleep here tonight is very disturbing. Um, yes, I literally spilled the tea. So, okay, so just think, you're a caveman person, you're supposed to predict the future, you get this image. This is what the eclipses on Aries, with Rahu in Aries, are going to look like. So we're going from Uranus gender non-conforming, surgeries with gender, tying up the need to spend I don't know how much money in order to experience a good experience in your body, or relatively coming against people who finally are given the opportunity to make alterations to the body that are technological and improve upon their experience in the body. Okay, there's two ways to look at it, more than two ways to look at it, and this is Uranus. And then coming to Aries, and there are so many ways that you can look at what is a man with a vagina, what is a woman with a penis. Okay, you know, if I have vagina, then you could look at me like a woman with a vagina and a man with a vagina, right? And I can be a woman and a man in that way. If you look at the person with a penis, you can look at them as a man with a penis and a woman with a penis. And we can look at each other in that way. Recently, you know that I sometimes quote Mark Boyarsky, and he had a video that at first I was like, what is he talking about? Because it seemed like he was really contradicting the idea of making surgeries for transgender people. And he's not about he, and it took me a while to understand if I got him correctly, that what he was referring to is like we have both the woman and the man inside all of us, and our bodies as we come to the world. So what he's aspiring to is that people will learn to love their bodies. Like, you know, if I have fat belly, then I like my fat belly and I improve upon my habits. But, you know, if I have a nose that is structured like this or the structure like that, you know, I have Jewish nose myself. So, you know, I learn to love my Jewish nose and change my point, change how I look at myself. I don't change, you know, my nose and my eyes and my this and my that, because I want to feel valid in my body. So, and he understands, of course, that there can be complications to having surgery on a psychological level, on this and so on. So it's like, oh, like is Mark Battery being transphobic? I don't know, but it could be that he's not being transphobic. He's just does not like the idea of pharmaceutical companies, of people who market surgeries, intervening with the sense of self-worth of a person. And it could be a bit, you know, traditional in these ways. I don't think it's a good time to question the validity of being transgender. There's a difference between surgery and not surgery, and there's a complete difference with the identity and the sense of self. So, and this is something to remember. I said it a lot of times, but again, I'm seeing this here. There's going to be structural changes that affect us on the long term. Sun is with Rahu. The way we see women is going to change. And in the coming years, please, even if you are traditional, even if you are this, to maintain your, like really to maintain your life. It's the worst of the worst times to question the validity of a gender identity that is non-conforming, non-binary, you know, the woman with the penis, the man with the vagina. Like, those are things that you definitely, like, you don't want to mess with a person with a vagina that tells you I'm a man. You don't want to mess with them. It's not good for anything. And eventually this is where we are heading for at least the coming 9 years. Okay? I don't see it as anything wrong, but even if you are of the people who sees it as something wrong, this is where we're heading. Whether you like it, you don't like it, this is where it is heading. So yeah, just as we come to this eclipse, definitely I feel like that needs to be said. So I have another sextile to Mars, and we come. Let's go to the sextile first. 12 May. Moon is having an interesting square to Uranus, but we have a bit of a triangle here between, okay, this is lovely. Mercury in Taurus again, just separating from a conjunction to the nodes. And we are in the shade of an eclipse because April 30 there is going to be an eclipse. The moon is already decreasing. And Mercury, the ruler of the sun, is sextiling Saturn and Venus. So we have this trine with Saturn and Venus. Venus is in Cancer, a water sign. Venus is happy in Cancer. Um, and but the moon is in Aquarius. It's not aspecting any of this, but it will go like a day after. It will go over um, a day and a half. It will go over Saturn and trigger this triangle. So it's going to be probably an interesting 666, but Mercury retrogrades here. So there's something in communication is coming up to do with women, relation, finances, security of food. Security of food. But I don't see it as a necessarily bad. It's just something that is bringing something up, and the moon here is squaring Uranus at this point, but will later trigger this trine. So there can be a bit of a revolt, maybe around food security or maybe prices, or we need to fix something. Maybe the way to combat inflation and food security issues, we need to restructure them or recommunicate something about the way that that was done. And all in all, it's not a terrible sky. So let's look at and the trine. So Venus in the trine to Saturn is already more of a favorable aspect, especially here. The moon is applying to trine Venus. Jupiter 29 degree of Aries, the anaretic degree. It's not a terrible time, even if but you have to pay attention. I almost said even if you think about the relationships and such, but not such a good time. The moon is decreasing, so it's not something you want to start new. It's more a good time to culminate things, but look at Mars. Look at Mars. It is applying to oppose Pluto for the first time when Pluto is in Aquarius. And it's going to be, I don't think it's for the first time. Yeah, it's not for the first time, but it's just one of these, no, yes. Oh, Mars, yes. So Mars is for the first time, yes. So this is the first time Mars is going to oppose Pluto from Aquarius. And that is being squared by Jupiter at the 29 degrees of Aries. I would not begin a relationship in this day, especially not when the moon is decreasing, but Saturn is not the problem here. We have other problems. Okay? So yes, it's something I definitely probably have addressed in my yearly forecast. It 13 May, it's one of those days. It's one of those days that you can hear about in the news, unfortunately. So, Saturn still sextile in Mercury on May 19 again. Is it a sextile when Mercury is direct already? Yes, so May 19, Mercury is already direct in sextile in Saturn. Venus is still in orb to trine it. Mars is very tightly opposing Pluto, so don't think anything romantic. Like if you want to do something romantic, paint. Don't hit on anyone. Sun, Saturn. uh, 28th May 2023 is already the Sun Saturn square. So this is the first time Sun is squaring Saturn since Saturn entered Aquarius, entered Pisces. 6 degrees, Sun in Gemini. Okay, the Sun in Gemini is applying to conjunct Aldebaran here on the square. Aldebaran, it's about material possessions and so, but it's about winning a battle. And on a personal level, remember, uh, if like you're the Mercury, like you're the winner in somebody's chart, and somebody is the winner in your chart. It could be something as simple when we had Mars on Aldebaran. I managed to get a point across with my family that was extremely important to me. And on that day, what is the account of the other point, Antares? On that day, I didn't have any, I didn't strike any points in my podcast. I didn't strike any points in my career, or in my teaching. So because I was at home, I was not doing career. Yeah, so somebody else could win a competition and be the best. Play the Antares. And very interestingly, I think a couple of days later, it was nou ja, Lada that talked about Antares, and she did an excellent post that I could not come up with anyway. So it's not, and was very useful also for me. So the fact that you are the winner at one arena and somebody else is the winner at another arena does not mean that you suffer defeat. It just means that um, in your Gemini house, the sun, there is a sun figure that is applying to win something. Now, you also read the chart relative to your aspects, okay? You are also a sun. Even if you look at the sun as the father or the mother, then you have an aspect of you that is of the father and of the mother that you keep replaying in this life. And this aspect is about to win something, some argument, some framing, or some material wealth. The tension with Saturn in Pisces, then it's a tension you're going to have to hold. Um, that can also be a tension between certain leadership and certain governmental structures, because Saturn is rules. The teacher and guru versus the pop star or the rock star. Okay, so you have two ways to reach enlightenment. Okay, one is building your kingdom, the sun, what I work for, and so on and so forth, to shine my light. And the other is to work hard, diligently, consistently, but also to be still, to meditate, to retreat. And those you have to hold that. Okay, if I'm the sun, if I'm the leader, especially if I want material wealth, and Mercury can be trade, argument, argumentation, law. Person, if you're doing the law, you also have to be a star, you have to be an actor, you have to impress, you have to perform in order to win an argument. um, and then when you are playing the role of the actor and the actress, you also need to retreat, okay, to do the Saturn work, to retreat, to meditate, to be in isolation, that you also have yourself. Even when other people are admiring of you, you don't lose your sense of self, because it can be so easy to depend on this admiration or on this material wealth that you have acquired, and to understand, yes, I can live with so and so money. The fact that my expenses grow now does not mean that I cannot live with less. It just means that I am given this chance to adjoin all this land, all this property, all this net worth, and I'm given this chance to experience this. It does not mean that my life has to depend on that. And you can hold this tension, because eventually um, it's a dissonance that you hold. Okay, it's good to have good things in your life. It's also good that those good things in your life, they don't run you and you don't run them. They're like a friend with you, that you can enjoy that you can experience that, and not forget yourself or forget your retreat. So with sun, it's also honors. There are honors related to your win. Okay. And this is the square with Saturn and Sun that happens annually. It's the first square of the Sun. She is beginning to see she set in the conjunction. Okay, there was a new structure being formed, and then after this new structure being formed, now there's the first point of conflict. Okay, so now with this new structure, a conflict arises. How do I deal with that? And 15 June, we have the Mercury, the first Mercury square Saturn, just like with the Sun, but with Mercury. And look, this happens again very close to Aldebaran. Okay, just 2 degrees away from Aldebaran. So it's within the nakshatra. First we had it with the Sun, now we have it with Mercury. And Mercury, Mercury does not move too far from the Sun. Mercury and Venus, they do not move too far from the Sun. But the fact that this square is happening on Aldebaran is significant. Both the Sun, later of course Mercury, square have their first tension point with Saturn on the nakshatra associated with Aldebaran. I think it is Rohini nakshatra. I don't remember which lunar mention, but if I'm mistaken, Rohini nakshatra. And it means that in this cycle of Saturn of 2023, and this is only 2023, I don't know what will happen 2024, 2025, 2026. Huh? The conflict between leaders, Sun, okay, the desire to receive honors, to be honored, to be appreciated, to be admired, performers, okay, the rock stars, the Sun, and Saturn figures. Think about the monk that sold his Ferrari. And you know what? A while ago, I was actually watching a Ferrari, like the place where we sell them. You couldn't get in, but she let me take some photos. And I was joking. I said, the prince that the monk that sold his Ferrari, well, he first had to have a Ferrari, and that was a nice joke. But here I feel like this joke, the joke that becomes real. And I had Mars and Aldebaran with we all had Mars and Aldebaran. It's, for me, the 4th house, ruler in the 2nd. So I can't help but thinking that this joke is going to play out in significant ways for people. Before you saw with Rohini nakshatra, it depends if you have Rahu or Keto, or it's closer to Rahu, closer to Keto. Here it is closer to Rahu, because Rahu is in Taurus, still in Taurus, and it's just one sign away from Rahu. And so the entire house clusters around Rahu is where the direction is heading. People want more material wealth. New people that didn't fancy those things want more material wealth. They have more hunger for that. Think how many people were evacuated from. Yeah, so some people are getting minimizing material wealth, but now we're actually heading for the desire for material wealth. Okay, so for some people it's like, oh, getting rich during crisis. but for some people it can be totally revolutionary in other ways. And a lot of the Saturn cycle in Pisces also has to do with the monk Saturn that first has to have a Ferrari before we can write the monk who sold his Ferrari. Okay, so there is this desire, because if you never had a Ferrari, and you might think, I never paid attention to these cars before. And for me, the first time when I saw them, it's not the first time I saw them live, but when I first like paid attention to that and I went to that store, I was like, the first thing that came up in my mind was like, oh, the engines are actually in the back, like not in the front, like a normal, just a car, because it's a race car. So it's like a rocket, but vertical rocket. It's like a rocket, and then of course it's very easy to get this rocket to go with wings. And there's something interesting about race cars. They're very close. They're very close to the road. They're really tightly sitting, very close to the road. They're almost being lifted up, but the wheels, they need to be wide to grasp the road, so they won't, begin to fly like a plane. And when you have the engine, well, the engine is like the engine at the back. So I find it's interesting. It's not a propeller, but yeah, it is. It's kind of a propeller. Then you put it in the back and not put it in the front. Now I don't know about engineering of cars too much, but I began to be fascinated, and I'm the daughter of a car engineer. So even though we didn't grow up together, I found myself more and more interested in this stuff. Um, yeah. So this notion of this is the time where you want to have that Ferrari. Like Saturn in Pisces is the monk that sold his Ferrari already, but the son was said, "Well, I can't sell my Ferrari. I never had a Ferrari. I don't know what you are experiencing, and I do want that Ferrari now." Okay? Mercury says, "Well, you know what? I want to build a car." And Saturn in Pisces says, well, you know what, do you know that to swim, just to play with your feet in the water, you get all the joy in the world. But there is this Mercury child that says, well, but I want to build a ship. And Saturn says, but you can drown, but you can this, but you can that. It's like, but it's so interesting because I have this thing that could fly on the water, and I want to build that. I want to engineer that. I want to make it happen. I have the material wealth to do that. I can play, okay, with that. And so this first square is having to do with a lot of um, tension, where even when it's like, even as you are going to buy the Ferrari, even as you are taking yourself on this journey to the unknown, you know that there's a part of you that needs to experience that, even though it's not the end of the road. It's not the peak of the mountain. It's not the island on the shore, but it's like, let's make every stop along the way. And one of these stops is having great material wealth, so why not? Okay, so you still want to have that material wealth without that corrupting you. Um, and there is a sextile to Jupiter that Saturn sextiles Jupiter. Okay, so perhaps we are more informed as we go on this Aldebaran journey and we have these winds. We are also informed that some, the guru in us, or our fathers, or our ancestors even, we know that they know better, but we also know that we are on a journey. That perhaps is the way that this can be or play out. There is also a form of unity versus, um, okay, if you think about possessions, there are many ways you can see it. If you meditate, then you are the bear, and you are the floor, and you are this, and you are that. And some people can manifest with that. Okay, it's like, I am the mansion that I want to have, and so on and so forth. Um, and the hunger of Aldebaran is something that can be seen as implying division. Oh, I desire this car because I don't have it yet. I desire this mansion because I never experienced that. And there's this tension, because to manifest this, I have to come closer in my experience. While you do manifestation, you either sit with yourself, or you imagine, or you draw, or you envision, or you feel you want to immerse in the experience of this being here right now. And you hold this tension between this being here right now and the joy of eagerness. This is really, classic Abraham Hicks stuff. Okay? The joy of eagerness. It is now, and I am eager to see it in the physical. I feel it, I sense it, I touch it, I test it, and I sense it. Think about the difference between having energy sex or astral sex. I'm talking like in a positive experience, having astral sex with your lover, and kissing them in the physical. So, in case both of these experiences are like, the best, right? Great, good, willingly, passionately, eagerly, joyfully, all these Abraham Hicks words attached to that, then you want to enjoy both. You want to enjoy both the sense that even if your partner is not here in the physical right now, you can already um, touch them, taste them, feel them, and enjoy with them, feel one with them. And you also want to enjoy to touch them, taste them, feel them in the physical, right? So, and there's actually a good chance with this composition, although it's not necessarily about sex, because Ruhini Nakshatra is more about wealth. Um, but yes, Saturn is next to Fumalat. So, um, but the comparison is that being away from someone in the physical, or not having the Ferrari right now, is also joyous in the sense that I can enjoy the process of, oh, I'm so eager to have a ranch and to enjoy ranch life. I'm so eager. And then how do I get this closer? I experience that, and then I walk on the land, like I physically walk on the land, first in my dream, but eventually things, the journey, like you have one thing connects to another, and you find yourself in an area, or in a ranch, or in something so similar in the experience, in the physical, and there's the similarity and the change, and those things, it's like living in a movie. When you walk on the land, and when you make a purchase, and you buy this property, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so great, this is so lovely. It don't have to be the monk that sold his Ferrari. It doesn't have to be about this hunger that you cannot satisfy. It can also be about the passion, and igniting the passion and the joy of being alive. I heard great Crispal teaching about Lakshmi for people who came from India. I said, I'm being asked, why are people in India so poor, and they constantly worship Lakshmi as a wealth goddess? And he said, because they vilified having material wealth. They say you must be with the spiritual, you must be detached from the body. Samsara, the end, to get to end the cycle, to burn all your karma. But there is also the joy of having material comfort. There is also the joy of having a home that is arranged beautifully, and you eat together with the family, and you have possessions, and you have that. There is also a lot of spirit in it. There's a lot of spiritual joy in being surrounded by beauty, and being having a ranch, and having, whatever you desire, and having a quality watch, and having a quality car. And those things do not have to, they're not contradicting spirit. They are spiritual. Your wealth, your material wealth is spiritual, and it's such a beautiful teaching. It's actually those teaching of this kind. I'm being reminded of it now, as I'm approaching in the coming years my Rahu maturation in Rohini Nakshatra, and I'm reminded of this and those kind of spiritual teachings that saw the divine in wealth. And I think those were Arabic teaching when I first ran into them. I don't remember. And the understanding of the meaning of gold, of why people strive to gold, and the spiritual meaning of gold. And that can be alternating. Like it doesn't have to be, the top of a mosque. It can also be a mountain, and knowing that the gold in the mountains that's created with the magma, it nourishes the soil, it nourishes the trees, that nourishes this, nourishes that. This is also and protecting or preserving, like UNESCO heritage. Think about, what if the Dead Sea was UNESCO heritage? Then people wouldn't mind the salt, and people could bathe in the sea and not drown, because the surface of the water, they would know where it is like not no more artificial altering of the surface underneath the water. Think how beautiful is that, returning back to Saturn in Pisces. This is how I see it now. Maybe I will see it differently. There are more points to this equation, and our view over what is wealth changes. But there is beauty to this material wealth. Wealth and well-being, they come together, and those teachings are of the teachings that ushered me into embracing wealth, embracing joy, and material. It's not material comfort in the sense of being comfortable. So again, the expansion, the in-breath and the exhale. So and also understanding that stagnation is not good for not our physical health, and also not the money in the bank, and it's good to have spirit. It's also good to understand that you do want to eat, and you do want to drink, and you want to drink quality water, and you want to eat quality food, and that is in a good in-breath out-breath is in alignment. Some of this Sun Mercury cycle with Saturn can be about finding this alignment of expansion and contraction in relation to our waters, or crystals, or minerals, and material wealth, and how do we readjust our economy or society, and so on and so forth. Okay. Next up is the sextile of Saturn and Jupiter. Yet another beautiful point. When I say a good balance of expansion and contraction, if I want to translate this, okay, into the language of astrology, I simply put a harmonious aspect of Saturn and Jupiter. Which perhaps, if I think more traditionally, okay, before the outer planets were discovered, then Saturn, the lord of karma, the lord of time, Jupiter having the most gravitational pull at our galaxy other than the sun. Okay, so everything revolves around the sun. And Jupiter is the largest body, so it's having its largest gravitational impact as far as we understand gravitational waves today in cosmology. There are tremendous accelerating discoveries that are already there. I would definitely need to do a study with me and just like go over, like read all the literature with you, because it's almost difficult to keep in track with the many developments that are happening. That are also positive, that are understandings of cosmology and the sciences and the applied and theoretical sciences around it. So um, when we well, this is interesting because it makes me think about gravitation and time. I'm so happy this happens because I was spending the last 2 days thinking like, oh my gosh, what happens to my science videos? And I recently uploaded one with Eris and Pluto. But I'm like, hey, I want to do cosmology, and now it's happening. It's just happening. So gravity, if we think about acceleration, if we think about gravity as temperature, we think about entropy, okay, the difference in relations of the entropy, the differences in entropy, as being able to be expressed by differences in temperatures and differences in currents, in electric current, electricity. Um, Electricity from the waters, and electricity from the gravity itself. What we make electricity? Oh, electricity we make from the gravity itself. Of course, we make electricity from water. So, but also we make the electricity from wind. And what we need is friction. Friction comes with acceleration. Acceleration is interacting with is both the result and the outcome of alternation of entropy around whatever we are circumventing, right? Think about the windmills. They're circumventing water mills. They're circumventing water. Okay, so the entropy changes with the temperature. And gravity is both the result and the outcome. Is both the cause and the outcome of those alternations. And um, the tendency to expand, to spread around, is a Jupiterian. It's not just a Jupiterian tendency. It's also a benefic one, what we call benefic in astrology. It's Venus, it's the moon, it's Jupiter. They grow things, although the moon can both increase and decrease in relation to the earth. And then the tides of the waves of the oceans, like the liquids in the body, okay, also the blood. We do not have a surgery if we can when the moon is growing. We have it when the moon is decreasing, right? And so the benefics, they're increasing stuff, and then the what we call malefic in decreasing. Okay, it's kind of like you want your HIV test to be negative, not positive. Okay, so malefic is that negative sometimes. Um, yeah, so you want that job interview to be accepted, to be positive, and not negative. So then you say, oh, that's a malefic when it's a job interview, but it's actually not so malefic if you're testing for malignant, cancer or something. Um, so the contracting, the severing, the letting go, those things are creating a vacuum, are decreasing, but also densifying. Think about the density of the bones. What is the best sport for bone density? That's swimming. Okay, doing stuff in the water, playing in the water, dancing in the water, doing stuff in the water, walking in the water. That's the best for bone density because you have the currents of the water providing. um, I wouldn't say random is a big word, but sporadic is another one. It's just the pressure of the water on your bone. If you're walking in a natural body of water, the electric currency that's being created with the more you're aligned with the currency of nature is tonifying, electrifying your body in tender ways where you're not a like electric shock, but it's toning the nervous system, which is electricity again, and then you become more healthy. Happens same with air pressure, and of course the gravitational pull. Even in the most, as Einstein said, you can't. I don't know if he said that, but it's like you can't hold gravity to blame for people falling in love. That romantic thing. Well, grabbers. So thanks both Crystal and Kerpiel. Why did I say Crystal? Oh, Crystal is someone who works with. No, Kerpiel. KR. I think he called himself either KRP, KSP. I have this a bit of neurodivergence, so I keep forgetting that. He's doing teaching George. He's excellent astrologer. So if you don't know him already yet, then you should. So think about this: the Graha, and thanks also Adam Ellenbas for teaching of the planets as grabbers. And how do they grab us? With gravity. What is gravity? Well, gravity is a wave. Well, gravity is the vacuum. I mean, vacuum. Well, gravity is what is a vacuum? Is an air pressure. What is an air pressure? Well, is it the alternations in entropy? So they and definitely they are associated with our nervous system, electric currents, those standard things, temperature, and natural phenomena. Because if something changes its temperature, bone fractures. The Challenger. Let's go to the Challenger. What was the problem with the Challenger? They let Feynman look into the Challenger, and eventually, what happened? The rubber that was around that rocket where it was launching, um, it was sensitive to temperature, right? And so a rubber is flexible, but if it is exposed to extreme temperature, like extreme cold, extreme heat, then you know that in a very cold day, you can't launch the spaceship at that time because there would be fracture. And then what happens? There is acceleration, so there is heat, but the range of temperature changes too quickly, and so instead for the rubber to remain flexible, it ignites, and that's how we lost the Challenger. And the problem was not with the rubber. Everything was built great. It's not with the temperature that day was not fitting for the launching of that rocket, and we lost life because of that. So Feynman explained that in a way that is more clear than I just did. But as the story of the Challenger. Um, and look, Saturn is retrograde in this chart. So just thinking about these things, looking into the past, thinking about these things. I did not do the astrology for the Challenger disaster, so that's another episode probably. And look at the sextile with Jupiter. That's where we began this part of the introduction. Oh my gosh! I just realized that the name for this episode is so misleading. It's like, Saturn in Pisces real time, and I speak about so many topics. So if you're watching this and you want to write the comment, just like it doesn't even have to be time step. Just like write the topics that I mentioned in this episode. For people to know that what is it actually about, then I can change the title later. Um, so in many ways that just looking at the chart with where Jupiter and Saturn are in a harmonious aspect, I'm already explaining so many things
theoretically, astrologically, in terms of health, that are related to look what happens when we even tune to any sort of harmonic aspect between contraction and expansion. This is something that has been, my chart has a sextile between Saturn and Jupiter. And this is something that has been accompanying me since academia, since I believe, the end of my first degree, but definitely in my second degree. Yeah, a lot. Which leads me into another point. Saturn, Jupiter. I didn't mention it in the beginning. I mentioned it on Twitter. Um, Jupiter is sperm, so Saturn sperm count, and how the when we level up the expansion and contraction in our lives, sperm count also becomes stable as we become fertile. So um, and this is on a holistic level. Okay, if we I think Kyra mentioned, look at what happened when Saturn was in Jupiter sign in Sagittarius. That was 2015, 2018 to 2018. And the cycle in Jupiter ruled Pisces, this another Jupiter ruled sign, will be related to that. So I see that already I'm tuning into the theories and the understanding I had then. And um, Pisces is the feet, is more like the habits that you have with like the feet and the crown chakra. Sagittarius is the hips, but Sagittarius is also a travel, like the boat traveling, the way you view something, your life philosophy. In both cases, your life philosophy has something to do with your sperm count. Okay, or it can be that you had your some made some changes. Maybe you did some yoga when Saturn was in Sagittarius, and now you became like you became able again. And then there is the question of sperm count. Sperm count here is also the contraction and expansion thing. Don't look if you're a person with who produces sperm. Um, don't look to medicine that is conventional in this case. Always look to the underneath, because this is Pisces. And you must understand, fertility, you are contacting the seed of life. What is your view about the seed of life? Okay? If your ability to do, sex, is more like, how do I view the other sex? What is my relationship with men, with women, all these things? Then a sperm count is the seed of life. At the seed are people good. At the seed are things beautiful. At the seed, what seeds do I plant in life? Okay, grow agriculture, grow this, grow that. But what seeds am I planting in life? This is a good time to plant good seeds in life in all levels of being. Whatever you did up until now, okay, it's a good time to plant good seeds. And um, and those seeds that are with the good alignment of expansion, contraction, Jupiter and Taurus, very material, sensual. This can literally be, right, your seed, that you can find a way to balance, not by, both by stuff like yoga, your body, your electric currents, your worldview. So you balance your consciousness and you balance your body, and, and those things between them. It's like maybe if you're dealing with sperm count issues, this can be an excellent time to begin, and the Saturn um, retrograde, to begin to reflect on the seeds that you saw, and not from the point of blaming yourself for what you did up to now. Now plant good seeds. Now plant good seeds. Now change your worldview about the structures of the body, and tend to your feet as well. So the bone structure and so on and so forth. Then you can, in time, even increase sperm count. Okay, if you're again, if you're treating yourself right, if you're treating the people you sleep, the people you seed right, okay, if you're having relations that and oh, Jupiter, Saturn in Sagittarius wants freedom. I want to be free. I want to travel. I want to conquer, and is always hungry. Perhaps if you are the moment of intercourse is the moment where you are catching the what you were seeking after, but it's also the moment that you're afraid to lose the passion because you've already achieved, right? You got it. But in Pisces, the challenge is not the constant conquest, but actually attachment and dissolving into the identity and the boundaries. So you have a chance to center yourself, to get rid of addictions slowly, little by little, to plant good seeds inside you. They grow, and you grow the seed of life inside you, and so the addiction is being shed from you like peeling an onion. Okay, the dead layers of something, the dead leaves are shedding themselves, and you grow a seed of beautiful life inside you, growing life inside you. And as you grow the life and you tend to the life inside you, and you care for yourself, you have a more centered sense of self, and you can shed disillusionment, you can shed savior victim dramatic triangles, you can shed being disillusioned, all these things you can slowly shed from your life and build a good structure. So this around this, this is a bit of depta that I need to do is definitely to find a good election. This one here has Saturn on the ascendant. This is the election for the Middle East, but um, find something with the election here. The moon is growing, it is in Cancer. It's just 1 degree away from Sirius, but it's not making any aspects. It's separating from a trine to this Saturn. Saturn is retrograde, so we don't want to target Saturn. So it's not necessarily a talisman that you can do, but you can set an intention, or you can come back to this video and set an intention and plant the good seeds and allow the current to take you to that growth, to grow the seed of life, um, and shed the things, the worldviews, the relations to children, to women, to men, to gurus, but here to children, to women. Okay, if you're improving your sperm count, to children, to women, even if the woman, even if you're gay, right? We still have an egg. Okay, so the woman, the egg, or the man who is having, the egg, the womb. You want to improve your relation to, you want to heal, you want to plant a good seed of life in there. If you are a woman, then um, uh, well, but this feels like more, to improve sperm count. Well, this advice, but also, in any case, to release addiction and so on, whatever you are. Anyway, so um, Saturn trine Sun. Saturn trine Sun, 29 June, and then trines Mercury. So Moon here is in Scorpio, attracting this Jupiter in Taurus. It's trining Saturn in Pisces. Saturn is still retrograde, and the Sun in Cancer with Mercury. So this grand water trine, um, but the Sun is where the Moon is, and the Moon is fallen. And there's this kite shape in the sky. So again, it's one of those days that are interesting, that probably um, and Pluto is in the 20th retrograde in the 29th degree of Capricorn, sextiling Neptune quite tightly. It's one of those days, which I think I could have a whole episode when I look at this shape in the sky. Venus is applying to conjunct Mars again in Leo, and they square Uranus. So Mars square Uranus, not something I like to see, because Uranus is a, because the way I see it, Mars and Uranus, they are union. They are good in conjunction, they're good in harmonious aspect. They're union. Why do I say they're union? Um, because it's a union of an act of rebellion. Rebellion, rebel, like, it's a union of act of rebellion. And when the Mars and the Uranus are not, think about Uranus as the nervous system of the people. Mars is weapon. It's like you want to do something with the weapon, but the weapon is not acting in favor of the revolution. I don't like to see that. Hmm? Um, Jupiter Moon opposition. So um, Venus squares Uranus is not something I mind so much, because it can just means that you're wearing something outrageous. Um, but Mars Uranus is more problematic, and I like them more in a harmonious aspect. So if you have any talismanic thing from Mars trining Uranus or conjuncting, then this is a time to bring up those energies or work with those energies or tap to those energies to help you deal with the stress of Mars Uranus. Um, Saturn here is one of the points of this kite shape, which is interesting in itself. And we stopped at 29th June. Um, I will have I will have a consecutive episode to this. So this is from now until the end of June, and then we need to go from July and on. This is only 2023. Very condensed, a lot of topics. I hope you enjoyed that, and we'll continue some other time.